All right, welcome back to the channel. I've got a 13 Honda CR-V. This vehicle has a very intermittent misfire code, or I shouldn't say misfire code, ignition coil code p0351. You can see it on the scan tool over here. And also, of course, it does have a misfire code p0301. I can tell you that I know from this acting up that it sets the 351 first. So that's kind of the cause, and then the 301 is I guess you'd call it the effect, at least the way the PCM looks at it. Anyway, I just wanted to go over how I diagnosed this thing because I just want to share a little tip that can help you if you're trying to find this problem. This customer it's been struggling, it's been a problem for them. You can see it's got a new coil, number one. They've been in the harness a little bit. You can see the electrical tape coming out of this plastic conduit over here. Trying to pull on wires, get it to act up. It's just so random. When it does it, it does it. When it runs fine, it runs fine. It might be a little skip or hiccup at a light and then it's gone. Or it just completely starts misfiring and then you have to shut it off, start it back up, and then it's okay. It's a fairly simple circuit. 3 wires here. What I'm going to do, hopefully when I shut this thing off, it wasn't misfiring, and I'm hoping it will again, because I just want to show how I came to the conclusion rather quickly when this thing was doing it. But of course, I had to get it to act up. It's near impossible to figure it out if you can't get it to act up. But fortunately, I drove it around, and it finally started misfiring. And then I pulled it into my shop, and I was able to do some tests while it was acting up. So I'm gonna go inside and start it up, and then come back out. I'll show you. Let's see here. I've got one channel lab scope. Of course, it's got a broken screen. Disregard that. This is not always essential. In this case, it wasn't essential. I like it because it gives me a few quick checks and I can get a lot of answers with it. But you don't have to have this. This is kind of a good tool to have sometimes as well. But again, it's not super essential. I mean, this problem technically could have been fixed or diagnosed with a voltmeter. Anyway, let me start it back up, make sure it misfires, and then I'm gonna show a few tests that I made. Okay, I don't know if it's coming through in the video, but trust me on this, it is misfiring. So I'm gonna pull my scope up, lab scope. One of the first things that I did, or wanted to do, with my testing, bear with me here, I'm trying to undo this connector. So the first thing I want to check, well, actually the very first thing I did is went to a cylinder that wasn't broken, because I need to know what I should see and what I shouldn't see. And this number one connector on this I found it's like a return signal. It's I'll go ahead and plug this in so you can see it. This is basically this voltage set right. This is basically a feedback. This is the ignition coil telling the PCM that it fired. That's all that really is. I can of course change it, the time span, so you can really zoom in and see it. So that just is a feedback, tells the PCM that the coil did fire. So I know that's good on this coil because this cylinder isn't the problem. The second pin is ground, which obviously should be basically 0 volts. And that's about what I have. Go over the other side, should have about battery voltage. So I have to adjust my voltage scale. It's off the screen, and you can see I'm sitting about 14 volts or so. So this one's good. So the first thing I want to do is go over to here. This is the affected cylinder. You see we have our battery voltage. This thing's shaking so bad it's knocking this scope off. All right, we have battery voltage. I'm going to go to the ground. Okay. Just as quick as that was, there's our problem. We have about 6 volts riding on the ground. And if I'm not sure how to read the scope, I can stick a meter in there, or this is a power probe, but you can use a voltmeter. I have 6 volts on a ground. I should not. Let me get this diagram back up. Alright, I should not have, so that was number 2. That was where I checked it the first time on a good cylinder, and I have a good ground. Now I'm over here, I have 6 volts. It comes from here, but I know the problem isn't here, or at least it shouldn't be, because I have a good ground here. My suspect area is this splice. I haven't looked into it yet to see, but I just wanted to show something real quick, because this is where the customer was getting confused and lost. He would wiggle this harness, connector here, you name it, just trying to get it to see if he could make it run smooth. So I'm going to show you that the way this PCM works. I'm going to go into the ground again, and I have 6 volts. In theory, if I give it a ground, now it has what it needs to see. The car should still, the misfire should go away, but this has to be the logic in the PCM, the way it's designed or engineered, that for some reason it decides it's not going to try and restore this coil operation until it sees an ignition cycle, which would mean, and it sees the circuit repaired. And I can prove that by going ahead and putting, I'll just put my ground clip here from my power probe. It's hard to do with the engine shaking. Okay, so I'm giving a ground now, and you can still see that the engine isn't, it's still misfiring. I'm going to go inside and shut it off. Wait a few seconds. Start it back up. And you can tell the engine is running smoother now. So, and I can even prove it again. If I take this away, as long as that problem is still there, wherever the problem is in the circuit or the harness, which I believe is where the problem is, it should start misfiring again. And as you can see, it does. So now I have to go searching for my guess would be the problem's got to be right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this conduit in this harness and try and find where this problem is, and then I'll turn the video back on. Okay, so I have a better diagram pulled up here. Now this isn't a factory diagram, but you usually tend to trust these, but this is a perfect example of how they can sometimes be wrong. So G102, according to this, comes off one, there's 2 wires each that come off of G102, and then it shows a splice somewhere. But interestingly enough, there's no splice number. Sometimes there'll be a S102 or S113 something to show that this is indeed a splice. I don't know why they decided to represent this incorrectly, but I can tell you it's wrong right now, because I have located G102, and you can see 4 black wires. Each one of those wires goes to an ignition coil. That black wire right there, that one, and that one. So there is no 2 into 4 or 1 into 2. They all come from there. So what I ended up doing was I took my little power probe. I have it set to audio, or audible, so it beeps when it reads a ground. And obviously I'm on the bolt. I should have a ground. When I go to this connector, which is the problem area, try and do this while watching the camera, you can see I have 0.0, but it's not beeping. If I go to this one, which is not broken, it beeps just like it does here. That lets me know that I have continuity to this ground eyelet. So I know my problem's here. So what I want to do to try to make this a little easier, since wiggling the harness while the engine is running is not going to allow us to find the problem, I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to start wiggling. I've got this conduit opened up because the wires run all the way through here. I wiggled all in here, I did over here. What I found was this little piece of, and the lighting isn't great. Let me move this light. Where it runs right into here, I'm getting a beep when I wiggle it. Let me see if I can get it to do it. Right there. So now the problem's gone. and now it's back. So somewhere, I mean, I've checked the wires good all the way up into here. So the problem is somewhere between here, probably in here where it's the hardest to get to. It's just Murphy's Law, but anyway, that's where the problem's going to be. I'm going to go ahead and open this up and try and locate it and see what's going on with it. All right, so I opened up this plastic conduit. I suspected that's where the problem was going to be. And I traced the 4 wires that were coming in from the ground over here. I went as far as I could, or as close as I could to the conduit, and I started pulling. All of them stayed intact except for this one right here. It was inside of this whatever. It's hard to believe this is factory, but I believe it is because it doesn't look like this has been disturbed. Anyway, I started pulling on it, and then this is what came out. And it's probably not going to come through in the video, but it actually looks partially like it's rodent damage. It's kind of like little chew marks on the wire. But this end right here is the one that goes over to number 1 injector that we know we had 6 volts on when the engine was running. So there's got to be a splice in here. So I'm guessing maybe that wiring diagram was correct. But looking at it here, and you see the 4 wires coming off, makes you believe that they all individually run to the coils, but then we see this splice that proves otherwise. I don't know. Maybe these other 2 black wires aren't even for this circuit, but according to the diagram, G102 is only tied to the coils, so that could be wrong as well. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, cut this open, and see where because there's got to be these two wires need to be connected, and they were at one point in here, and then I pulled on it and completely broke it, which is what I was trying to do because I needed to find out why it was intermittently working. So I'll go ahead and cut this open and get an idea of what's in here. I'm guessing a little splice. There's also a red wire that runs through here. May not have anything to do with it. Likely doesn't. But I'll go ahead and open it up and see what's going on. All right, so I had to cut the video, cut this tape off, and I've discovered the problem. I always say when I'm working on cars, it always makes sense in the end. You can, no matter how much of a mystery it is when you first start, you always get to the problem, and it always makes sense. So this definitely is not factory. Factory does not use standard butt splices that don't have insulation in or a glue in them to seal them up. So that black wire, let's see here. This black wire was crimped in the other end of there, and it came out. And then when I was disturbing it, this popped right off, and you can see all the green inside of there. And now I know that it probably was used for remote start at some point. When somebody at some point, I'm suspecting it doesn't have one now, but at some point it does, or it did. And that's usually what they use as a trigger. Well, you know what? That would be a ground, so that wouldn't be the trigger. So I don't know. I don't know what somebody spliced in here for, why. I'm going to fix it correctly, tape all this stuff back up, put it all back together, and see if it's fixed. All right, so this is all back together. Or I'm sorry, the wire is reconnected. This is what I use. This is so just a crimp, and then you heat it up and until the glue oozes out. It's like heat shrink with glue built into it. Crimp and seals, sometimes they're called. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that this is how you have to do it. You can, if you want to solder and heat shrink it, or however you want to do it, as long as it's connected and it's a permanent repair, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll get this all taped back up. It's kind of a mess the way it had to come out of there, but I've got to get it neatly tucked back into the way it came so that all snaps back together, as well as this one, and then I'll get this thing started up and make sure it's fixed. All right, so everything is back together. It looks nice and neat the way it was before we touched it. I'm gonna go ahead and clear codes. Yes. On Hondas, it tells you to turn the ignition switch off. I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but if you just ignore it, it will clear them anyway. Go back in. No codes. I'm gonna start the car, make sure it runs smooth. And it's back to running smooth again. No misfires. So this is a proper repair. I don't care how you get a ground to that wire. I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments saying, we'll just run a ground, you would have been done in 5 minutes. Yes, that would have fixed it. I always like to know, I learn a lot when I find the problem, so that's why I go a little further than some to find it 100% what was wrong, what was the cause, and then fix it, and then I know it's fixed correctly. So anyway, that was the main point of this video. I just wanted to, it's not, I mean, this is a pretty common, I don't say this is a common problem, but this is just an electrical problem, nothing advanced or difficult. It was just made difficult by the way Honda engineering, I should say, decided to make this system work. So when you lose the ground, even if it's brief for 1 second and the misfire is there and then it gets restored, let's say it wiggled and it fixed it and it had a ground, the problem doesn't go away. So the customer was thinking correctly in trying to fix it by wiggling the harness and see if it would act up, or see if the problem would go away. I apologize, there was a phone call just came in. And they were wiggling it to see if the harness would go, or the misfire would go away. And the problem is once it's gone, it's gone. So their logic would have worked if it was running smooth and then they started going back here and twisting and pulling, because then it would have acted up. If they had wiggled it and pushed on it right here, just like I was before, and the problem would have occurred, then they would have at least known. But it didn't, you know, they didn't know that, and unfortunately this thing was acting up at the time. So anyway, just wanted to show a little bit, just having a little understanding about how the circuit works can go a long way. That's all. Hope you enjoyed the video.